We're live on YouTube, Chair.
Right, thank you, Ed. Right, good evening, everybody. I'm Councillor Brian Oldham. I'm the chairman of the Northampton Borough Council Planning Committee. Welcome to tonight's meeting. I just got to make a statement about the recording of virtual planning committee meetings. That is that the public have a right to record this meeting by filming or other means whilst it is open to the public. If members pass a resolution to exclude the public from part of the meeting, then the right to record will not apply to that part of the meeting. For that reason, if a resolution is passed to exclude the public, then for the part of the meeting to which the public do not have access, the live streaming of this meeting will be switched off and resumed if the meeting again becomes open to the public. Thank you. With that, Ed, before we start the main items on the agenda, could you give a list of who's in attendance at this meeting, please, Ed?
I certainly can, Chair. Tonight's officers in attendance are Peter Bagley, Rita Bovey, Nikki Toon, Hannah Weston and Paul Everard, who's joining to answer any questions members might have on item 7.
Yeah. And the members?
I beg your pardon, and members, we have yourself, Councillor Oldham, Councillor Lane, Councillors Botwood, Russell, McCutcheon, Mary Markham, Brian Markham, Golby, Birch and Kilby-Shaw.
Thank you very much. That takes effect of about 10 members, is that right?
That's correct, Chair.
Thank you very much. Right. So the first item on the agenda is apologies. Any apologies, Ed, please?
Apologies received from Councillor King, Chair.
Thank you very much. The next item is the minutes. Committee, you'll have seen we've got 2 lots of minutes. That's the minutes for the committee meeting held on the 7th of July and also the minutes held on the 28th of July. Have you all read them and happy that they are a true record? Or if not, are there any comments? Are you all happy?
Yeah.
Show of hands that we're all happy.
Agreed.
Agreed. Agreed. That's on both minutes. Okay. Thank you for that. Deputations and public addresses. Well, we have 3 speakers tonight, committee. We have 1 speaker, Mr. Jonathan Best, on item 10B, and 2 speakers on item 12B, Mr. Lewis Bolton and Gary Owens. They're on the MPH application. I'll utilise those 2 gentlemen in the normal way for us because there's nobody speaking against that item, so that they can be in attendance to ask any questions if there are any. Okay, declarations of interest and predetermination committee on item 4. Are there any, please? Councillor Markham, Mary, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, personal disclosable pecuniary interest on items 12A and 12B as a board member of MPH, and I'll leave the meeting for those items.
Thank you very much. Councillor Botwood, yeah. Alan?
Same again, Chair. Personal pecuniary interest on items 12A, 12B as a board member of Northampton Partnership Homes, and as such I shall leave the meeting for those items.
Thank you very much. Anyone else got any declarations of interest or predetermination?
Nobody's indicating, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ed. Thank you. Right, we then go on to item 5, matters of urgency, which by reason of special circumstances, the chair is of the opinion should be considered, while there are none. So we then go straight to item 6, list of current appeals and inquiries. Rita, this is your report. Would you present it and bring us up to date with it, if there are any up-to-date measures, please?
Thank you, Chair. If you turn to page 21 of the agenda, we have a list of 14 appeals. We are still waiting for decisions on them. Interestingly, we did have a whole load of this decision came back a couple of committees ago, but currently we're still waiting, possibly because of the holiday season, I wonder. So all those 14 will refuse under delegated powers. So we will, once we have received the decision, we will take it back to committee and report to you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rita. Committee, I can't imagine any, but are there any comments on it, please? No?
No one's indicating, Chair.
Right, thank you, Rita, for that. Right, committee, we now come on to the first item on the agenda for the benefit of the committee. It's item 7A, which is about the recent changes to the planning legislation. Now, this is not something that we have to vote on, it's just that it's a notification to us that Rita's going to present, and then we'll see what points or comments or questions maybe after that. So Rita, would you lead straight in on this, please?
Thank you, Chair. It is quite a sizable report, so I will briefly go through the topics with you. I'm sure members have read the report. Probably, I would say it is one of the objectives of the government to make the planning system more simpler and more effective. On top of that, as a response to COVID-19 pandemic, the government has brought in new legislations, some of them temporary and some of them permanent, to help the planning system to continue to operate smoothly. So if you remember, can refer to the report on page 23. There are some legislation has already come into effect, some of them in July, August, and in fact, some of them come into effect today. So the major legislation change, the first one, if I can say, is the extension of planning permission period. So basically, normally, when we grant planning permission, we will put down a time limit, as in the permission need to be implemented within, for example, within 3 years of granting of planning permission. But the government now put in legislation to say that planning permission that was granted from the 20th, that would have expired from the 23rd of March till the 31st of December this year, could be extended automatically till 1st of May 2021. So just to help the general public or community, because of COVID-19, there may be difficulties to implement the permission, for example, to find builders or whatever. So that hopefully can keep some of the planning permissions alive a little bit longer till next year. Another bit of legislation came in relation to additional permitted development rights. I'm sure members have heard this over the news over the past month or so about this particular part, whereby construction of new dwelling is allowed on new detached or purpose-built block of flats. So what we call upward extension. So that will become permitted development. On top of that, you can build 2 additional stories of self-contained homes, like flats, on freestanding blocks or terrace houses or mixed uses building with an element of housing. So existing block of flats, you can put another 2 floors above. Or you can replace a vacant or freestanding office building. You can demolish it and build a block of flats without planning permission. However, all these 3 categories, as I said, will be permitted development. They do not need planning permission. They only need to be subject to what we call a prior notification approval process through the local planning authority. So developer need to submit a prior notification application to us, and then we will consider it, and the criteria to consider such application will be listed, is listed in paragraph 3.4 of the report. That includes criteria such as transport and highways, contamination, flooding, external appearance of the building, natural lights of rooms. So that is what we will look at through the process. One piece of big changes that happens today is the change to the use classes order. I'm sure members are very familiar with the acronym. We used to use, say, A1 for shops, A2 for example, banks, A3 for restaurants. The government now have grouped them all together and give them a new use class, Class E. What's that mean? Because under the Town Country Planning Act, it is not a development if you change the uses within the same use class. Before, when you change from a shop to a restaurant, you need to come to the council to get planning permission. But starting from today, you can change from a shop to a restaurant without planning permission. So there will be implication. For example, as local planning authority, we normally will control film extraction or opening hours of restaurant if it is, for example, a corner shop changed to a restaurant. But now we do not have that control under planning, but obviously people will need to go to get license. So those issues will be then covered by licensing law instead. But in terms of a pub use or hot food takeaway, used to be A4 and A5 classification. Now they become special use class, what we call them sui generis. That means, you know, you can't change between those classes. So they do need planning permission still. But other things that is changing, what we call a Class E is light industrial. So that means a shop can be changed to a light industrial use without planning permission. So that is something we'll have to get used to, because, for example, at the moment, it's a corner shop next to some houses. Someone can then go into that to become a light industrial use, manufacturing something. Another class change is what we call, used to be a D2 use, a leisure use, now will become a F2 use class. I think if you turn to the report on page 35, that table will give you a sense of what the change into, and you can still see there all the C classes, for example, houses or care home, or house in multiple occupation. Those classes have not been changed. So another things that have been brought in, apart from the use classes order, is the extension of construction site hours. That means developer can apply to the council to work longer hours for build development. Notwithstanding that there is, like, sometimes we'll put condition there about they can't do construction work between certain hours, but they can come to us now to apply to have it extended as a result of COVID. But the extension will last till 1st of October 2021. So within those time until 1st of April, developer can come to us and ask for an extension of those operational hours. Another two pieces of the legislative change is deferral of community infrastructure levy. They can come to us and ask to say that the payment can be delayed. And also pavement licenses. And normally that is not so much directly related to planning. However, now restaurant can have table and chairs out in the pavement. You know, so they will have fast track process to have that done. But what the implication is on planning is that normally we will ask for planning application to say change of use of the pavement to put table and chairs, but now they're supposed to have deemed consent, as in they don't have to come to us anymore to ask for that. So those are the legislative change that have taken place, and obviously those will have implication on our local plan part 2 consultation. Especially, you know, one of the proposed local plan policy 19, control primary shopping frontage, but because now users can be changed backward and forward to other uses rather than a shop use. So that will affect really our draft local plan policy in that aspect. So apart from the legislative change, the government has brought into two major changes or proposed changes to legislation. The government published the white paper for planning for the future, and also a consultation paper on changes to the current planning system. Both of these papers have big implication on local plan making, and also development management policy as well. Members note that those two bit of consultation paper currently still under the consultation process. As local planning authority or as a council, we will need to make formal comments to MHCLG, one by the 1st of October, the other one is end of October. So obviously, there's a lot of changes proposed. One of them, member have heard from the news about they're changing the local plan system whereby council will need to identify site into 3 categories, which is listed in page 28 and paragraph 5.4 of your report. The 3 categories include the growth areas, whereby outline planning permission will be automatically be granted to sites, or renewal area, whereby the sites will be identified for suitable for some development, but we may make some control regarding density, for example. Or the 3rd category will be protected areas where development will be restricted, could be like green belt or something. So there's a lot of changes proposed. I'm not going to go through them in detail. So members, obviously, you will need time to digest them. We will, if you have any comments or queries, please contact Peter, myself, and Paul. We will gather all the information and put it together as part of the council's response to MHCLG. On top of that, there will be a members training session organized on the 16th of September for the future white paper. So there will be another opportunity for members to explore the paper and give your views on that as well. So Chair, I will stop here now. If members have any comments, Paul and I will endeavour to answer them. And thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rita. Well, before I put it to the members, that probably will have, there's 3 points that I would like to ask for clarification on. One is the construction site hours that you just mentioned. The fact is that you kind of intimated that they could have an open license to this. I mean, the limitation on construction site hours is there now, but they may be extended. I mean, the fear I have is surely we're not having developers trying to work through the night and all that sort of thing. I mean, there should be, obviously, there would have to be a restriction on that. I don't know whether as local planning authority, we can still deal with that. Surely we can't, it doesn't mean that the construction site workers can be working all through the night, 24 hours on rotated shift basis, I hope. The other thing is on page 29, 5.16, it says applications should be determined within 8 to 13 weeks, which I think is about right at the minute, but I'm thinking that on a big development, that could be very tight. And if we don't determine, or any authority don't determine them applications within that time limit, then as I'm reading it on 5.16, then it could be that it will be deemed consent will be given if applications are not determined within that time limit. Yeah. I don't know whether that's right. And the last point I've got to make is on 5.20, still on page 29, if applications were refused and successful at appeal, local planning authority will automatically rebate the planning fee, does that mean on top, and costs could be awarded on top of that? So I'm sorry, that's a bit of a mouthful, Rita, but then 3 points, that's the only 3 points initially I've got to raise.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, in terms of the construction site hours, obviously, we have to determine that on a site-by-site basis. But the government's view is that local planning authorities should take a more flexible and pragmatic approach, as in hopefully to help developer to give them, because of the they were down tour for some months, so that for them to catch up with their work, and also to provide further housing, really, you know, delivery. So they will have to submit an application to extend the construction hours, but local authority only got 14 days to determine that. And if we do decide to refuse their application, they have the right of appeal as well. So I think it is for the government to put pressure on local planning authority to look at it, you know, more flexibly. But obviously, we do take into account of the impact on local amenity and residents, you know, living environment. We will look into that in more detail. If and when we receive such applications, we will obviously consult environmental health on that. Your second point about you know, the timing of determining application, obviously, therefore, within the white paper suggestion about 8 to 13 weeks determination period. So we may or may not come into effect. It is tight for major application, I have to say, for 13 weeks. But I think the government is advising developer to do more pre-application so that they can sort out some of the issue before they submit the application. But still, it will put a lot of pressure on local planning authority to determine applications. So in terms of, for example, we need to look at a constitution to make sure that there's less application, perhaps, I don't know, to go to planning committee so that we can get more decision out rather than, you know, that way. And finally, you mentioned about the cost. Yes, the suggestion that if local planning authority losses appeal, we have to return the fees. Yes, if we were found to act unreasonably and refuse planning permission, costs will be awarded against the council on top of the planning fee as well. So it is quite hefty things to do. So so I think it focus our mind a bit about decision making, really. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The construction site hours still worries me. I'd be worried giving a developer open license to do work at any time, even though COVID-19's been here. But anyway, that's a matter in the future for that. Committee, anybody else got any questions or comments on Rita's report? Thank you, Rita, for that.
Councillor Brian Markham indicating chair, then Councillor Birch and Councillor Russell.
Thank you. I'll take it. Councillor, I'll do the ladies first. Councillor Birch, please. Jane, good evening. Jane, are you listening? Can't hear you, Jane. Jane, you're still on mute, Jane. You're still on mute.
Okay, right. Got my mouse back. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Rita, on permitted development rights, normally a lot of these questions would come on, go to neighbours, to environmental health, to transport, archaeology, all the rest of it. Now, how much notice would be given, or how much weight would be given to neighbours complaining about, high-rise buildings or, overlooking? I don't quite understand the permitted development rights and the ability to object from whoever that might be.
Yeah, through you, Chair. In fact, for prior notification application, as I said, I refer you to the paragraph. Let me find it again. That is paragraph 3.4 of the report. So there are only certain things we can look at. So archaeology is not one of them, first of all. But transport is, and flooding, external appearance, adequate lights. So there are only very certain topics we can look at. Beyond that, it will not become a material consideration. So yeah, you can say that maybe the democratic right for general public has been taken away a little bit more, because this is not like a normal planning permission anymore. You know, you can consider all sorts of issues. So the government narrow it down. We can only consider application on those topics only. So beyond that, it's not become a material consideration. Thank you,
All
Chair.
right, Jane.
Could I just come back on that quickly, Rita? Does that mean that it is possible to refuse an application under?
I think it's not to refuse it, but normally what we say is the EP will need to apply for what we call prior approval will be required if there's objection, because the government say it's permitted development on its own right. So the principle of development is acceptable already by the government. It's only certain aspects we have to look at. So we don't refuse it per se, but we will ask for an application to submit. We have to consider those issues basically.
Okay, right, thank you. Councillor Russell. Catherine, I believe you needed to make some comment, please.
Yes, thank you. I'm looking at 3.15 pavement licenses for outdoor seating. At one stage, I think it was on social media, it might have been on Twitter, somebody was saying that there needs to be a change to the way that outdoor seating is allowed, to make sure that non-smokers, or rather smokers, have a position well away from where people are eating or socializing, because smoking can be quite intrusive. Do you know if that is in the offing at all?
Through you, Chair, unfortunately, I don't know the detail of that because we don't now consider it. So we'll be under licensing to consider that. The only implication for planning, as I mentioned before, is that they don't need to apply for planning permission to put a table and chairs on pavement. So they only need to go through the licensing channel, and they don't need a change of use planning application anymore.
Councillor Markham. Brian, yeah.
Yes, thank you, Chair. You hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. If I just ask Rita, just to get my head around it, there seems to be three elements of this report. First element are things that are being introduced temporarily because of the COVID crisis, and it seems to me that some of those make a lot of sense indeed. You know, extending the time since to start work on site and so on, and even extending or allowing developers to extend the hours of work only for a limited season, limited time to catch up. So there's some elements there, as I understand it, partly to do with COVID. There are other elements where we've already had legislation, and I read somewhere in the report where, unfortunately, when legislation's introduced quickly, there's unintended consequences. And one of those I think of is, I think the last time the government messed around with the planning legislation was to allow blocks of office buildings to be converted without planning consent into accommodation. And of course, what happened there, we'll remember, not so much in Northampton, but many places, you've got office blocks on the edge of town, which suddenly were housing people, no public transport, no play areas, no green space, and so on. And I'm very worried that there'll be unintended consequences of this new legislation. For instance, it may make sense for an empty bank in the town to become a coffee shop. May make sense in the town centre, in particular, for an unused large stall to become something else. You know, a sort of a street eating place or accommodation. But of course, it's not necessarily be a good thing for an out of town or edge of town small business or insurance office to be suddenly a supermarket, as I understand it, with no planning consent needed. If that's right. And finally, the question is, we mentioned the government white paper. Am I right in thinking that there has actually been no green paper on these planning proposals? And although we have a limited time to comment, and I welcome this chance to do so, I have that meeting on the 16th, but is it not unusual for major legislation just to be, there's no green paper, it's just a white paper? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Rita?
Yeah. Through you, Chair, Councillor Markham is correct. For example, previously we have the prior notification application still in place to change office blocks to flats, for example. At the time, we can only consider contamination, transport, and flooding. So in London, I think it happened in places whereby rooms has no windows because amenity wasn't part of the consideration. However, the government have now brought in to a new thing. Now, adequate natural light in all habitable rooms, those dwellings will need to be considered. So those are the lesson learned, I suppose. The government, understand the unintended consequences, now changing things. I'm sure there will be things that will happen further down the line that, they haven't thought about, but we will have to suck it and see, really. But the legislation now is in place and we just have to work with it, unfortunately. In terms of the white paper, yes, you're correct. There wasn't a green paper, so we straight went into the process of the white paper consultation for this one. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rita. Thank you.
So just to add on that, the difference between consultation on the white paper and a green paper, essentially, I guess, if they're producing green paper and there's chance to make major changes to the legislation, but once they've tabled the white paper, it's tinkering with it. I don't really understand the difference. What will this current consultation make any difference, I wonder?
Rita, any quick
yeah, I mean, it's supposed to, so we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, thank you. I was going to say, if I'm coming in, Peter, I'm coming in, honestly. If there's no one else got any comments or queries, I was just going to ask.
Colby's indication, Chair.
Oh, sorry, I'll come to you, Peter. I've seen it in a second. I'll come to you. Councillor Galway, Matt, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My only comment is quite general. One is about democracy and our involvement as members, both on a small scale level, talking about some of the points that Rita talked, and on the large scale big development sites. And I think whilst developers and government probably view us local councillors as a bit of a block or an inconvenience sometimes, I think it's really important to make sure we retain some sort of oversight, both at a small scale level and that bigger, wider, bigger development. And I'm sure it'd be worth trying to pitch in on the 16th. My question or concern is around those sites already established on things like the Western Joint Core Strategy. Do they automatically have permitted development rights? Not permitted, outline application, sorry, as Rita described, but maybe that could be answered on the 16th. But it's that bit around democracy and our involvement as local members, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Golding. Thank you, Matt. Rita, quickly before I bring Peter, and I want to bring Paul in as well. Anything to add on that one before I do?
I think I'll leave it with Paul to answer that particular one. Probably will be more appropriate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, if there's no one else of the members, Peter, I was going to come to, as a matter of courtesy to you and to Paul, to come in with any comments that you'd like to make on what's already been said and what's in front of us, please.
Perhaps, Chair, if Paul could just answer that question about the status of this at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Paul, please. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it is a white paper. There are a number of questions scattered throughout the document at relevant points. And in a lot of cases, they actually ask questions about, should we do this or should we do that? So there are questions about the degree, for instance, that you should be, for example, going along the lines of planning permission in principle on major sites, that kind of thing. So it does posit options in a number of places, not consistently, but there are options sort of proposed in a number of places. But it's clear that in general, the intention behind this document, I think, is to take quite a change of course, if that's helpful.
Okay, Peter, yeah.
Yeah, if I could just follow on from that, Chair. Yeah, Paul's right. It's a fundamental shift in the planning system, in that permission for major sites, when they're allocated in growth renewal areas, effectively gets granted at the allocation of the plan stage. So those sites we've got at the moment would not be affected in that. So, you know, those allocations in the joint core strategy would stay as they are. But that move in front loading the system will mean there's less applications going to be made. So there's less fees coming in, and there'll be fewer applications coming to planning committee, because the principle of those sites will already be agreed when the allocation is agreed in the plan. So it is a major move to give developers more certainty, but in terms of the local authority, it means we have to do more work upfront. What we've not touched upon is the local plan has to be produced in 30 months.
30 months,
Yeah,
And anybody who's got experience of dealing with the joint core strategy recently will know that took considerably longer than 30 months. But I think the question about the white paper, this is a fairly strong indication that this is what the government intends to do. It's not without precedent for them not to do a green paper, but when they do go straight to a white paper, it means this is really what we're thinking. They will still listen to consultation, and as we've said, you know, we will have the member training session on the 16th, and then be talking to Councillor Hill about submitting comments, answering those questions that Paul's just raised. But it is, I think, a fairly strong intent of what they intend to do with the system.
Thank you, Peter. As you are quite rightly say, we've got this special meeting on September the 16th, which I hope everybody, or almost everybody, can attend for that, because it is important. I mean, this throws up, to me, more headaches than we've got aspirins for at the minute, if you know what I mean. So we've all got to be diligent of what's going on. But I hope everybody can make it for September the 16th. And on that note, we've got nothing to vote on. So I'd like to move on, but thanks the officers who's commented on that, and your time as well, Paul. Are very brief, but you've been there. So anyway, we've whetted the appetite for further comments, if you like, committee, and we can raise them more on September the 16th. We don't vote on it, so we can just move on now to the next item. Okay, thank you very much for that. Thank you for that, Rita, the presentation, and your input as well, Paul. Thank you. Right, committee, we now come on to item 7B, which is the Unit 420 at Cobb Drive. It's a deed of variation of section 106 obligations on page 37. Rita, this is your report as well. Would you like to present it and what it entails, please?
Thank you, Chair. If you bear with me, I'll just call up the PowerPoint. Just bear with me. Okay. Sorry about this. Let's see. Sorry. Can you see members? This is working so well today for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see it.
So
yeah.
this is the application for a deed variation for Section 106 agreement for Swan Valley. Does it move to the second page? It hasn't. Sorry.
It's still on the first read.
On the first page, sorry.
Yeah.
No, let me just go back. Stop sharing. I go to the, if you bear with me, I don't know why I'm not doing it today. Sorry. It's not listening to me, Chair, so I just have to.
Right.
Sorry. So I just have to go through it. Nikki, I don't know whether you could find me that particular item.
I'll see if I can find it. If you want to start, I'll see if I can.
Okay, yeah.
Stop sharing.
Okay. If I stop, yeah. Okay, so because. Okay. Sorry, Chair.
All right. Would you like us to jump one and come back? Would that help?
Wait. So it's Lily there. I think Nikki will be able to find it.
Although I'm having problems as well now.
I know, yeah. So it's a bit strange. Sorry about this, Chair.
All right.
Maybe I'd start again. I'll try it again, Neil. Sorry, okay. Okay, I should be able to do it this time, hopefully. Okay. Yes, hopefully, yeah. Does it move? Yes. Oh, sorry. Okay, I'll start again. So something is playing up today. This is an application for variation of 2 legal agreements associated with Swan Valley. As you can see from the screen, put the pen, laser pen, yep. So this is the part of Swan Valley already we built out. Part of this is outside the borough boundary. So at the time when planning permission was granted for Swan Valley, as you can see, some of the buildings have already been done. The 2 legal agreements that was finalized in 1992 and 1997 contains obligation on the landowner to provide landscaping buffer and also a building exclusion zone around the entire site. Now, when you look at this, the hedge area is the landscaping area around the whole site, and also a building exclusion zone, which is this lighter color around here. The purpose of the buffer zone appears just to minimize the impact of the development, especially on surrounding and also on the M1 motorway. But since that time, you're talking about, you know, nearly over 20 years ago, all this building has been erected. Notwithstanding the obligation, some of the building has been positioned and encroached onto those areas, as you can see those areas. Most of the Swan Valley have been built up apart from plot 200 and the lodge, which currently we have a planning application for it. So obviously when all this development came forward, they have their own landscaping scheme and all the technical document, and planning permission was granted for all those plots, notwithstanding there was this obligation. But the owners now came forward and wanted to regularize the situation, to amend the legal agreement to reflect what is on site, basically to say the buffer zone, exclusion zone will be in place, but with the amendment of those areas has already been encroached on. I think most of them are quite minor encroachment, wouldn't have any significant impact. Even for the plot in here, although the building will be nearer to the M1 motorway, but since the 1992 onwards, all the tree establishment in here have been grown to more mature state. So when you travel now along the M1 motorway, Swan Valley is quite well screened by the existing tree belts. So overall, officer consider that the encroachment have not really caused significant impact or any harm to those development. And we do feel that to agree the regularization to allow them to change the deed of variation is acceptable, just to reflect what is on site. So apart from that, there's no other obligation will be affected by these minor changes. So Chair, the recommendation therefore is for approval for the changes. Thank you, Chair. I apologize for the delay.
No, that's all right, Rita. Thank you very much. Right, committee, there's no speakers on this, so if there's any questions to Rita, go direct to Rita through the chair. Any questions to ask of Rita of that report, please?
Councillor Brian Markham.
Sorry, Ed, what did you say? I've got Councillor Botwood and who?
Councillor Brian Markham, Chair.
Right, Councillor Botwood, Alan, yeah.
Thanks, Chair. Rita, just one small point, and I acknowledge what you've said about a lot of them appear very minor, but again, this looks to me like people haven't built within the confines of what they should have done. And it's not one building, it's a lot of buildings. Now, they are only minor, but, you know, we hear about people putting a building up and then have to knock it down because they haven't stuck to the plans. And I'm just wondering how we tighten up on that to make sure this doesn't happen.
Through you, Chair, I think it is all down to site specific, and we'll look at each case according to its merits. Like I mentioned, each big major warehouse come forward will have its own planning statement. You know, they will have their landscaping scheme. So all those at the time was considered to be acceptable, notwithstanding their encroachment, because as I said, we look at each individual site, look at the landscaping scheme, the flood risk and everything, you know, technically around the site, and decided that the proposal was acceptable for that particular site. So we acknowledge that, yes, that there is a bit of contravention to, you know, to the legal agreement. However, at the time, various, you know, people looking at that and thinking the scheme as built was, you know, acceptable. So, yeah, I acknowledge what you said, Councillor, on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Markham, Brian, yeah.
Yes, Chair. Reading the report in 8.5 refers to recent changes and government guidance, particularly regarding biodiversity, and I'm just wondering. I would agree that I think, you know, going up the I think I remember 1997 the applications for this, and how important it was felt to screen the development from the motorway, and also more importantly from Kingslandbury and so on. I would hope that, but of course things change, and I would hope that as the individual applications have come in, the offset and maybe losing some bit of landscaping means actually there's less landscaping, but more biodiversity, more trees, more hedges than might have been envisaged in the first place. And I keep getting a catwalk across the front of my screen. Apologies for that.
Okay, Rita, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Chair. Yes, that's correct. Obviously, we will look at each case individually, you know, all the like green roofs or whatever. We'll still look at that. We'll consult county ecologists if necessary. Sometimes they will advise things like bat boxes, for example, in certain sites. So we will still do that. So notwithstanding, you know, the encroachment, but each site will have its own landscaping scheme. We'll make sure that the scheme, you know, is implemented in accordance with the plan. So although will be taken into account. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rita. If no one else got any questions, I'll go on now to comments. Any comments, committee, please? Councillor Lane, Jamie?
Yeah, just to propose we accept the officer's recommendation on this report, Chair.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Botwood, Alan, yeah, thank you. All those in favour that we accept the officer's report, please?
Count 10 hands, Chair.
Thank you. So that's approved unanimously. Thank you, committee. Thank you, Rita, on that one. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, can I just clarify? Councillor Chowdhury, I think, has joined the meeting, but it wasn't on screen, so didn't vote on that. Ed, do you agree with those numbers now? It's 11 on screen.
11 on screen, yes, but Councillor Chowdhury joined halfway through the item, so he wouldn't have been voting anyway.
Thank you.
But it's still unanimous to those who were in attendance and able to vote, yes?
Correct.
Okay. Right, thank you for that. Right, we come to item 7C, committee, page 43, which is the open space Wootton Fields at Wooldale Road. It's an application for a variation to the S106 agreement to amend the agreement to allow the open space to be transferred into the ownership of Wootton Parish Council. Nikki, I believe this is your report. Would you present it, please?
Thank you, Chair. Just bear with me. So this, the outline shows the extent of the Wootton Fields development. The 106 was actually signed back in 1992. And again, we've got an aerial view here. The green space in question is to the south of the site. So you've got Newport Pagnell Road running along the north, and then Wooldale Road extending down the east and the south of the site. Caroline Chisholm School is roughly about there, if you can see my dot. So the area in question is to the south of Wooldale Road and a bit of land to the north there, which you can see slightly clearer on that plan. So the intention of the 106 was always to transfer these areas of open space to the parish council, but it was on the basis of a 50-year lease, and there was no clear indication in the section 106 of what would happen to the maintenance of this land afterwards. So both David Wilson Homes and Wootton Parish Council have been in discussion about the transfer of the land, and are in agreement that they both wish for the transfer to be on a more permanent basis. So therefore, the proposed variation is considered reasonable, and it's a practical option to ensure the permanent future maintenance of these areas of open space. And officer recommendation is to agree to the variation with delegated authority to the Borough Secretary and Monitoring Officer in consultation with the Director of Planning and Sustainability to agree some appropriate wording for the amendment to the section 106. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you very much. Like the previous application committee, there's no speakers on this. So if there's any questions on it, to direct you to Nikki at the moment. Are there any questions to Nikki, please? Well,
Indicating, Chair.
pardon? What
Sorry,
did you say?
nobody indicating,
Oh,
Chair.
thank you very much. So therefore it's comments committee. Any comments, please? Councillor Golby, Matt?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to say, I'm very pleased to support this and wholeheartedly believe in the power of parish councils to deliver and enhance communities. I'm an active member in my own parish, and this is the sort of thing that we should be encouraging as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Russell, Catherine, yeah.
Thank you. I haven't come across this before in my term on the planning committee. Is it quite common for this type of transfer to take place without there being any financial amount or any financial exchange?
Nikki, would you like to come back on that, please? Yeah,
The existing 106 does, one of the obligations in there is for maintenance contribution. In respect of this, David Wilson Homes and the parish are in negotiations on an appropriate sum for maintenance. That would be for a period of so many years, after which time it would be the parish that would essentially fund it, whether that be through precepts. But the maintenance fund wouldn't be ongoing forever. As I say, it would be for a certain period of time. Generally with 106 agreements, that would either be over a 10 or 15 year period.
Okay. Anyone else got any comments, please? No? Right. So do we, or do I, as chair of the committee, have a proposition that we accept the officer's recommendation? Councillor Lane, Jamie, yeah. A seconder, Councillor Botwood, Alan, but we accept the officer's recommendation. All those in favour, please. Is that 11?
11, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Rita. Thank you very much. So that's approved unanimously. Thank you very much. Right, committee. That concludes item 7. There are no, on item 8, no Northamptonshire County Council applications to consider. No, on item 9, no Northampton Borough Council applications. So we now come on item 10 for determination. Now, if you didn't already realise, committee, item 10A has been withdrawn. So we're not determining that this evening. So item 10A has been withdrawn. So it now falls upon me to go straight on to item 10B on page 61, which is again a variation of conditions at the Milton Ham Farm development and Toaster Road. I believe, Hannah, this is your report. I just wondered if you would be kind enough to present it, please.
Thank you, Chair. So your committee members may recall this application was heard at the last committee on the 28th of July, and it was approved in principle. And just to quickly remind you with the plans. So this is the application site just above the M1. Again, so we talked about the existing access of the roundabout. And approved in principle, a larger unit 1 and unit 2 and 3 staying the same. So just to remind you of the elevations. Committee members may recall at the last committee, a speaker raised concern with the impact of the drainage system on a private legal agreement that we could not consider as part of the committee. The applicant has, following the last committee, amended the scheme to change the proposed drainage from a swale to a pipe. And this was in response to that speaker's concerns. This is the only change now proposed from the scheme that was previously approved in principle by committee. But it has to be brought back because it is an alteration to the scheme, however minor. The lead local flood authority have been consulted and have advised that the change to the pipe is acceptable. And just to make it clear, this area, if I show you this smaller plan, it's in the bottom eastern corner where there's the line into the neighbouring plot of land. So the only change we're considering is from a swale to a pipe. You'll notice in the addendum, we've received a letter of support from the neighbouring property, neighbouring field, happy with the changes. And we've also received a comment of no comment from Milton Malsall Parish Council. So yeah, just to reiterate, the only change we're looking at is the change of this particular area of the drainage from a swale to a pipe. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Anna. Well, we have one speaker on this committee, Mr. Jonathan Best. Mr. Best, are you there?
Mr. Best didn't join the meeting, Chair.
He hasn't. So therefore we have no speakers because there's nobody speaking again. So we've got no speaker representation then. Is that right?
That's correct, Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you for that. So committee, any questions directly straight to Anna then, please? Are there any questions to Anna ask of this slight variation?
No one's indicating, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Right, committee, any comments, please? No?
No one indicating.
I have a proposition that we accept the officer's recommendation and to approve this in principle with a slight variation. Councillor Kilby-Shaw proposing, yeah, a seconder.
Councillor Mary Markham is indicating, Chair.
Okay, so Councillor Kilby-Shaw is proposing, Councillor Mary Markham seconding. All those in favour that we accept the officer's recommendation, please?
Count 11, hands in the air, Chair.
Thank you very much. That's approved unanimously. Thank you very much. Right, it now comes on to me because we've got no item 11 to discuss, items for consultation. We now go on to items 12, where I have now to say big good evening and thank you for your attendance to Councillor Mary Markham and Councillor Alan Botwood. Thank you very much for your input on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair, and good night, everybody.
Chair.
Thank you. See you soon. Thank you.
So, bye.
Thank you. So committee, we're now down to 9 members now on these next 2 items, which is, the first one is item 12A on page 95, which is, well, I'm not going to read all, it's replacement of brown frame windows to white frame windows. Anna, this is your report. Would you like to present it, please?
Thank you, Chair. So this is 14 applications grouped into one. They are all for the same alteration, which is to alter the windows from brown windows to white frames. The windows stay the same size and design, it's just the frames would be a different colour and they'd be better insulated. It's just to take you through the photos. So this is the application, so you can see the multiple red squares, which are all the 14 applications, and just the aerial view again, so you can see they're in the same area. Just a aerial view, so you can see the brown windows. There's also white windows already in the area, and it's proposed to change a number of windows to be white. So it's just a typical rear elevation. So these would be the windows that we changed. Again, as I said, the glazing would be the same, so it's just the colour of the frames that would be visible is different. I'll just quickly run through a couple more photos. So you can see these ones have already been changed to white. They don't appear visually detractive to the building. Just again, one of the buildings to be changed. Again, another one which has already been changed, but they'd all be white. And this just shows what they're changing it to. So it's just a better insulated to hopefully improve the heat retention in the building. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Anna. We have no speakers on this particular application. Committee, any questions to ask of Anna, please?
Councillor Brian Markham is indicating, Chair.
Councillor Brian Markham. Brian, yeah.
Yes, if I could ask Anna, presumably those windows that are not, that have been changed to white, and those premises that are not in each of those courts that are not numbered on this are not in management of MPH anymore. Is that right?
Through you, Chair. I'm afraid I'm not sure which units they are that have changed. It may be that some of those are included in this as retrospective covering up. Planning permission is required because it's a block of flats, so they don't have permitted development to change windows. That's why it's needed. But I'm afraid I'm not precisely sure at this moment which precise on those photos which was which.
Okay. Anyone else? Councillor Russell, Catherine, question to Anna, yeah, please.
Thank you. And I noticed on some of the photos that there were sky boxes, sky aerials quite close to the edges of the windows that were brown, so I'm assuming they would need to be changed. Who would be responsible for ensuring the continuity of that service and that the dish doesn't get damaged?
Through you, Chair. So it wouldn't be a planning matter, so I would guess it would be NPH would have to sort that out and manage it. These blocks, they are still having properties inside, so I would guess it was NPH's responsibility to ensure that.
Thank you.
Anyone else got any questions to ask of Anna, please?
No indications, Chair.
Right, committee. Calls upon me to ask if there's any committee's got any comments to ask, please. Right.
Councillor Birch.
Councillor Birch is Jane, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. This is an energy saving scheme and will improve the lives and bills, utility bills of the residents. I think I'd be happy to propose that we move to the vote.
Thank you. Anyone else got any comments before I take that up? No? No? Nobody got any other comments?
Nobody indicating, Chair. Okay.
Well, committee, Francis, I know you're in attendance. I don't particularly, if it's not necessary to go through every individual application because there's 14, can we pass this en bloc, so to speak, Francis?
Yes, Chair, yes. In terms of the those applications, they're all there in front of the committee. You can see the details of the applications on the front sheet. There is no need to go through each and every one of them unless a member of the committee decides that they want one to be picked out. So if the committee are happy to consider them en bloc, then I don't see that as being a problem, Chair.
Thank you very much, Francis. Committee, there's nobody that's got a particular item on these 14 that's one separating, is there? No. So therefore then I would ask for a proposition that we pass these 14 applications en bloc as you have in front of them on your sheet, your first sheet on page 95. So can I have a proposal that we do that, please? Propose. Councillor Russell, Catherine, yes, thank you. Councillor Kilby-Shaw, seconding it. So the proposition is that we accept the officer's recommendations for all 14 applications to be approved. Show of hands, please. Thank you.
I count 9 hands raised, Chair.
So that's unanimous. Thank you, Ed. Thank you very much, committee, on that one. Now we come to item 12B, committee, on page 101 on your agenda. It's a lock-up garages on Stenson Street, and it's for the demolition of the existing lock-up garages and development of two semi-detached dwellings with associated parking. Anna, this is your report. Would you present it, please?
Thank you, Chair. So application site is at Stenson Street, an existing garage block. And just to show you the site plan, this is the existing garage block. There's a car park located to the west, residential properties along these streets. This is a supermarket type business. And then you've got a mixture of commercial and residential in this area. So just the aerial view, just so you can see it. So this is the retail Whole Foods shop I mentioned. So as existing, as I said, it is a garage block. It is fenced off, so there's no parking in the garage court as existing. And you can see from the photos, the garages are in a fairly poor condition. This is the Farm Foods building to the rear that I pointed out, the food shop. This is looking from the car park towards the garage court. And just, this is the current entrance. New entrance will be repositioned further up the street. You've got a substation, and then you've got residential properties. So the site is here. You've got residential properties and their rear gardens there. And this is just the opposite side of that entrance to the garages. So the entrance is currently over here. And you can see it's a terrace row of residential properties. You have bollards splitting Stenson Street into two, and then the other half turns more commercial in nature. So the application proposes to demolish the existing garage blocks and to build 2 houses. 4 parking spaces would also be created, open parking spaces within the entrance, and then an area of soft landscaping and gardens. Now you'll note that the ground floor doesn't have any habitable accommodation. That is because the application site is within flood zone 3, so habitable accommodation on the ground floor is not acceptable. So instead, extra parking is proposed at ground floor. At first floor, you would have a kitchen, diner and a living room for each property. And at second floor, you would have 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. Just show you the elevations. So you can see, because the ground floor is, you can't have habitable accommodation, they are slightly taller than the usual properties we see from NPH. However, it's not considered that they are out of character with the surrounding area due to that mixed character with the food shop immediately behind and the commercial units. The proposal has also been designed to have an attractive frontage to the street scene, so the houses are sideways on to the street, so the entrance is actually sideways on, but the side elevation has had windows added so that it still would appear attractive from the street scene. So there's no loss of parking as it is currently fenced off and no access to the site. The proposal provides ample parking for the properties. There's actually an excess. So there would be some facility for existing properties as well. There are good sized gardens, and there haven't been any objections from statutory consultees. The Environment Agency have also said they are happy with the scheme, subject to conditions which are attached, such as not allowing habitable accommodation on the ground floor. It is considered that the proposal would be an improvement to the area from the current semi-derelict garages, and it's therefore recommended that the application be approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Anna. Well, we have 2 gentlemen down for speaking from Northampton Partnership Homes, Mr. Lewis Bolton and Mr. Gary Owens, who are well known to us. Gentlemen, unless there's nobody speaking against, and unless you particularly want to speak, if you would be just present in case the committee have got any questions, I'd be happy for that to happen, but I don't want to deny you your right to speak if you wish. Would you be both happy to do that like we've done before?
Chair, it's just me this evening. I'm happy to just take any questions if that's what the committee would like.
Gary, good to see you. Okay, so it's just you, so I'll take you up on that offer. So committee what you have. Any questions, because we are in question time. Any questions either to Anna or Gary, as long as you let me know which one you want to ask the question of, I'm quite happy for that to happen. Councillor Russell, Catherine, yes. Who's your question to, please?
I'm not sure. Perhaps I can be guided on this. There are quite a few mature trees there, and I was just wondering what the state of the trees would be during and after the build.
Okay, Anna or Gary, whichever.
Thank you, Chair. Let me just share the plan again. So a few of the trees would be lost. We have consulted the arboricultural officer, and they haven't objected to the loss of those trees, but they would be lost because the new access point is proposed where those ones are. You've got these ones retained. So the access point currently is around this point. So those ones would be retained, but these ones where the entrance is are lost, unfortunately, but the tree officer hasn't objected to that.
But on that point though, Anna, the arboricultural officer has said that as long as the trees are maintained to protect the trees from accidental harm during the works. That's correct, isn't it?
That's right, Chair. So it's the remaining trees, and I believe, yep, we have a condition 7 requiring the tree protection measures within the report to be undertaken on site. So that covers off what the tree officer wanted for the trees.
Okay, that's fine. Gary, did you want to come in on any of that and expand on that at all?
Just to say that's quite a regular occurrence in terms of we're used to dealing with those types of conditions on a lot of the garage sites that we put forward previously. So that's absolutely fine, yes.
Okay, fine, thank you. Anyone else got any questions to ask Councillor Birch? Jane, yeah.
Thank you. Again, I'm not sure whether it's Hannah or Gary, but in the conditions, condition 5, there's a reference here to planting, seeding and turfing within the approved scheme. I presume this is behind the extra parking that is to the right as we looked at the plans. It seems as if in a period of 5 years isn't really long enough for that to be maintained. And what happens after that? These are MPH properties. Is that just to become overgrown and it won't be very pleasant 5 years on? It seems a very short time to be maintaining it.
Yes.
Anna,
shall I go first? Through you, Chair. So the 5 years is the standard condition for landscaping. So it's what is always requested. So for 5 years after any development, the maintenance of that. It's the land around the parking spaces and also the gardens as well. But after that time, it's MPH land still, so they'd be responsible for its maintenance. So I don't know if Gary can add anything further on that.
Gary?
Yeah, absolutely, Chair. Yeah, I was just going to reiterate what Hannah's just said, really, in terms of it does encompass all the land, including the gardens at the rear as well. So obviously they will become the responsibility of the tenants. But I do note your sort of comment on the more external areas around the parking. That would just be invalid within NPH's general land maintenance regime, which we have quite a substantial amount of already. So it would just be invalid within that regime, really.
So it would not be forgotten. It'll just be carrying on. Yeah.
No, Chair.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. Right. Anybody else got any questions, please?
Nobody's indicating, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ed. So now it's gone on to comments committee. Anyone got any comments on the application?
Councillor Brian Markham's indicating.
Councillor Markham, Brian, yeah.
I think it would be remiss for the committee not to actually congratulate MPH on coming up with this. The fact that in a flood area, an area of the town that's often neglected, they can come up with such a good scheme, a viable scheme, which provides homes instead of what has been an absolute disgrace for quite a long time. I know it. So, and in particular, the way the houses are turned round, so that from the street itself and the main road, you don't actually see the garage doors. You know, so I think it's an excellent scheme, providing homes, and once again, so I'd recommend we accept the officer's recommendation, Chair.
Well, I'm quite prepared to do that, provided no one's got else any comments. I'll take your comments as a proposal. No, Councillor Lane, Jamie, yeah. Well, you seconding my Councillor Markham's proposal?
Yeah, Markham's proposal, Chair.
You're happy to second Councillor Markham's proposal. Jane, Councillor Lane's happy to second. All those in favour to accept the officer's recommendation, please.
I count 9 hands, Chair.
That's it. That's approved unanimously then, Ed. Thank you. There's 9 committee members present. And that committee concludes this evening's planning committee. Can I thank all the members for their participation and being in attendance, and also the officers for their hard work, what they've done in presenting this report. And all I can say is it's been good to see you after a 5-week layoff, and take care, stay safe, and unless there's any further comments, I'll declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.